Hey everybody, welcome to the Kickstarter preview for Goons. Now Goons is a 2 to 4 player game coming out from All or None Games. In this game, you are going to be playing the role of henchman. So instead of playing the villain or the mastermind, each player is a henchman and they're throwing their money and energy and support behind various schemes that the different villainous masterminds are trying to come up with. So let me jump in and show you how to play the game, give you a good sense of how to play, and this will help you make up your mind whether or not you feel like you should back the Kickstarter. I will have a link to the Kickstarter down below. They'll have some more information on the Kickstarter page as well. But let's jump in and take a look at how the game works. Okay, so let me give you a quick overview of the various components that you're going to see in the game. Of course, you'll have your main board here. You can see there's 4 corners of the board, and these are going to be associated with different villains, which are randomly put out, as well as different action types. So you can see kind of have a green area here, a blue area here, and then red and yellow. And you notice you have different colored cubes. So there's a lot of different ways that these things kind of interlock and interact with each other. Now the second part of that is each player is going to have their own kind of player board. Now here you can see I've set it up for 2 players, and we have these cards here which you can randomly deal out or draft, and these are sort of like different personalities that you can embody. Now these player cards here are double-sided, so you can see we have a 2-player side which has a little bit more rows there, and then we have a 3 to 4 player side which only has 4 rows. And then in this spot you can put your card for your little special ability that you'll get there. And so as you take cubes off the board here to take actions, you're going to put these as you move along. So maybe we take a green cube and then we can put that cube wherever we want. So we could put it on yellow or blue or even green. And then on the next turn, we're going to put it down on the second row. So you can see this is actually acts as a tracker for the number of turns in each of the rounds. Now to start the game, players will get some money and some energy markers. So you'll choose a player color of energy markers, and so in a 2-player game you'll get 9 of these energy markers in your color, and then the other player will get 9 as well here. And then you're also going to get, in a 2-player game, 3 money. And again, these are prototype components here, so don't worry too much about this, but it looks like the art is pretty close to final. So we get some 3 little money tokens like that. And that's enough to start the game. In a 3 and 4 player game, you get a little bit less starting energy and money. Now the other bit of setup here is this central grid of cubes here. And you can see there's, on the board here, there's going to be marked slots where these will go. And so you just kind of shuffle these all up together and randomly deal them out. There's 20 of each of the different color cubes. You'll also notice there's 20 of these black cubes, which have a kind of a special hindrance on the gameplay. So you'll mix all these up and stick these in here like this tightly. And this is going to be the main focal point of driving actions through the course of the game. And then in each of the corners, you're going to take a villain, and each of the villains has a deck. So you can see here we've got Dr. Knizing. And so we're going to shuffle up his deck and then deal out one of his schemes. And we'll go around the board here and do that for each of the villains. So here we've got Mary Clyde and so on. And then in each of the other corners there will be some other villains. Now there also will be other villains available, so you won't necessarily use all of the 4 of the same villains. So here we've got some butcher cards, just as an example of some other villains. And each of these villains is going to interact in a different way. They each have these different schemes on the other side. And this one in particular has like a little bit of a trading aspect. So you can kind of make deals with the butcher as you go there and then support the schemes. And so each of these villains has kind of its own unique type of thing. Some will involve some dice rolling and some area control and different things. We'll go through that as we go through. Now off to the side, we'll have some other energy markers that players can pull out of the supply and put in front of them. And next to wherever we ended up with the kid random villain, we're going to have the dice there, because you're going to be using dice when you interact with him. And of course, next to Blind Razor, you're going to have this bag with these different colored white and black cubes, and that's kind of the mechanic, which I'll show you in a little bit, that you're going to have when you're interacting with Blind Razor. So like I said, each of the villains kind of has its own little mechanic and way of scoring. And of course, you'll have a little bit of a money supply. You want to put that off to the right-hand side of the board, because the green and the yellow side will be dealing with that. And then next to the green side, you're going to have this little deck of item cards. You're going to deal out 3 of these, and players can, through the course of the game, buy these items and give themselves special abilities by taking actions on the green side of the board. So let's talk about how the actions in the turn is going to break down. So let's break down how the game flow works. So the game is going to take place over 3 rounds. And again, the rounds are going to be broken up into a different number of turns. Let's say in a 2-player game, we've got 5 turns. And then in a 3 to 4 player game, we'll have 4 turns in a round. And then you're going to have scoring and all the different villains at the end of the round. So you're going to do that 3 times over. Now on a turn, it's very simple. You're simply going to take one of these cubes from this central kind of action board. Now at the start of the game, you can only pick a cube in one of the 4 corners. And when you do setup, you can never have a black cube there in a corner. So if you deal them out like that, just move cubes around so there's no black cubes in the corners. So once you take a cube from a corner here, now you can take cubes that are adjacent to an empty space. So in addition to the other cubes in the other corners, now I could take either of these 2 blue cubes because they're adjacent to an empty space. If somebody were to take that, then I could take either these 2 blue cubes or that red cube. And then slowly as the game goes along, you'll start to get more and more possibilities. And then as the number of cubes starts to diminish, they'll get a little bit tighter. So when you take a cube, let's say you took the green cube, you're going to put it on the topmost row of your card, like I said before, and you're going to put it onto any of these that you wish. So maybe I took the green cube and then I did it on a blue spot. And then the next turn I took a blue cube and then I put it on the next row down, and I would do the yellow spot. So what's happening is you're getting kind of like 2 actions per turn. You're getting a green action for taking the green cube, and then you're getting a blue action for putting it on the blue space. And the next turn you're getting a blue action, and then you're getting a yellow action for putting the blue cube on the yellow space. So what do these actions actually do? So first let's look at the red action. So let's say you had taken a red cube or put whatever cube on a red space on your player board, then you can interact with the red area. And when you interact with all of the areas on the board, you can either do the action indicated by that spot. So in this case it's the dojo. And that means you can take an energy marker of your color and add it from the general supply into your personal supply. Or, in addition to taking the action of the indicated space, you can actually place energy tokens out onto that villain spot. So let's say instead of taking the action here, which is to take energy, I'll go ahead and you can always put 2 energy tokens onto kind of that villain scheme. And you can see there's different markers, spaces up there to add energy. So you're trying to gain influence with that villain, and then you're going to score based on who has the most influence up at the top here. They're going to work different ways. I'll go over what the different types of schemes are, but you're trying to get the most influence at least a couple of the villains on the board and then interact with them and go through that. So again, you can take the action of the space, which in this case of the dojo is just to get an energy cube and put it in your supply, or you can put out 2 energy tokens in that colored space. And again, that's for taking the colored cube or putting whatever cube you chose on the matching colored space on your player board. So the dojo is very simple. You get an energy token. If you go here to the yellow space, you can simply get $1, or of course you can actually put energy on wherever the villain is. If you take a green action, then you can buy one of these item cards or put energy on the green villain. Now if you look here, we've got the backpack here, and this costs you $5. You can see these items will also give you points at the end of the game, in addition to scoring points on the different schemes. And they'll give you different special abilities. Like the backpack here is one of my favorite ones, is increase your energy marker limit when committing to a scheme. So instead of committing 2 energy markers when you commit to the scheme, you get to put out 3. So that can get very handy because that's going to make you more efficient in putting your energy out if you choose to do that. And then you've also got another one here, so let's take a look at the crowbar. This one here costs you $3, and it gets 5 points. It says you may, once per round on your turn, swap places of 2 action cubes on the game board. So you can kind of mess with the game board here, and I'll explain why you might want to do that. And there's just a bunch of different items in the game. There's always 3 available to purchase from the supply. And the nightclub is probably the trickiest spot. You can tell the others are pretty straightforward, but this one isn't really that tricky. So if you do the blue action or place on the blue space, then you can interact with the nightclub. Now one thing you can do is, again, you can take one of these cubes and move it to another spot on the game board here, kind of clear some space, or you can take 2 of your energy tokens from any villain and move them to another villain. So it's okay just to kind of get stuff out here, and then as the kind of, the round unfolds, you might be able to take a nightclub action to kind of throw more weight at different villains as you move along. Now, why would you want to be messing with these cubes here? Well, the thing is these black cubes by themselves they do nothing. Is the way this kind of dynamic board here unfolds is you can see there's already kind of like little groupings and bunchings of the cube. So that's going to be sort of informing what you do on your turn, because again, you're trying to have somewhat of an area control and a majority to interact with the different villains. And again, they do work differently, and I'm going to show you just a second how they work. But you can start to see things sort of start to get in the way and folks having to deal with that. So before I show you the villains, I'm going to show you one other special thing each of the characters can do. So each of the different characters here has a special ability. And basically on your turn, once per game, you can then flip this card here over to activate either the red or the yellow action, like so. So you can use as if you had taken a red or yellow cube. So you can give yourself a third action. So let's take a look at some of the example schemes that you're going to see, and that's going to be the main way that you get points. You're also going to get points for leftover energy markers and money in your supply, and again also for the items that you have. So those are the different ways you're going to get money, but the main way that you're going to get points is from the schemes. So the interesting thing, before I show you the villains, whenever you score victory points on the villain schemes, that's always going to be based on what you're looking at here. So you can see actually underneath here you have blue, green, red, and yellow victory points. Okay, so those are having to do with the different villains in each of the corners. So when you score victory points over the course of the game, it's going to increase the more revealed of the different colors are in the game. So that's going to also tie into the dramatic thing. So when I'm about to go in and explain when you're scoring victory points to the villains, just know that that's always going to be equal to whatever the number of available stars is. So let's take a look at Kid Random here, and obviously he's the one that interacts with the dice. So let's read this. So roll 1 die for every energy and do not resolve the scheme, and at least 4 energy is on the scheme. So let's say I was the only player and I put 3 energy here, and we don't have 4. So if the scheme doesn't resolve, then that player or players would get their tokens back into their personal supply. But let's say we had 2 from me, and then we had 2 from the blue player, just for argument's sake, because this is a very interesting one here. It says roll 1 die for each energy. Total the sum and claim the rewards below based on the resultant input position. So whoever has the most, going left to right above the card will then go first, and then everybody else will follow after. But this also is based on your position. And this is interesting because you actually want to roll less than 15. So you can see you want at least 4. So it's this real kind of tug of war cat and mouse with this particular one. And so if I'm going to roll 2 dice, I want to get less than 15. Well, that's good, because if there's no way to get more than 15. But if nobody else was there, then I might be tempted to put in 2 more dice for myself, and then getting 15 on less than 15 on 4 dice. So there's a little bit of a mind game with that. But the first player, whoever has the most energy, is going to get $8 because they're taking the most risk, and they went in there first, let's say. And then so the second place player, if they meet this goal of rolling less than 15, will get $5 and $3. So now we're going to take a look at Mary Clyde, and she doesn't really have any randomness here. And the way this works is whoever has the most energy gets first choice of these rewards. So maybe I want a victory point, and I'll mark that. And then the next player down the road will mark this one. They want the $5, like so. So you just kind of take turns taking those, and then you just resolve it like that. And next we're going to deal with Blind Razor here. And so Blind Razor interacts with these white and black cubes, and they're going to be mixed into this bag here. And each of the different cards will kind of mix the cubes in different ways. So I'll just show you this example. So put 5 black villain cubes in the villain bag. For every 1 energy marker, add 1 white villain cube. And then randomly draw 5 cubes from the bag. Total the amount of white cubes and claim the rewards based on the position. So the more people put energy in there, they're going to have more white bags, but of course whoever is in first is going to get a better reward here. So if we draw out a bunch of white cubes, let's say we drew out 4 white cubes because a bunch of people went here, and whoever was in first, they would get points and $6. So the last one is Dr. Kinezing, and he's got an interesting idea. So you don't really compete on this particular one. You score all of them individually. So here's an example. Score rewards individually based on how much energy you commit to the scheme. Okay. And then you receive the reward minus your money. So if you just put in 4 energy, then you get 3 energy back times the amount of money that you have in your personal supply. If you put in 8 energy, you're going to get victory points times the amount of money in your supply. So there's not really a competition here. You're just either trying to put 4 or 8 in yourself, and then you're getting a reward based on that. You're not really doing any area control or competition with this particular one. So you can see all of the different villains interact in different ways. And like I mentioned earlier here, the Butcher, he's got a bunch of abilities here. Let's just look at this one here, where you can actually interact and do a trade. So when you place here, you can trade victory points for energy and so on. Or maybe there's another one here where you can get, energy for money. Okay, so that was Goons. I hope you got a good sense of how to play the game. Definitely go take a look at the Kickstarter. There'll be a link to it at the bottom of the review here on YouTube, and take a look at it. Thanks.